All right, so we've actually touched on some of the things I wanted to speak to in regards to AOL, but I would love to, I mean, I know you're new to the team, but I know that Tim has
this role.
To this role, right? And you've sort of come back, right?
I came back, well, I originally was at AOL through the 5min Media acquisition.
Okay.
And I ran the video sales and strategy team for a year, left to go join Vigil. So I've got some second screen experience there, and came back recently to run the East Coast sales team. So I've been in this role 4 months.
Okay.
Current role.
So you do have legacy, sort of institutional memory. So I would love for you to talk about the journey, because video has really had its coming out, right? This has been the belle of the ball only in sort of the last, 18 months, and kind of the new fronts this year were the coming out itself. I would love for you to talk about the journey for AOL as a company and how video as a cornerstone has changed your sort of identity and culture.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I'd say is AOL is in the, we're in the content creation business. And so anytime you're in the content creation business and you're about storytelling, I think the most powerful way to tell stories is in video. And I think since Tim, took the company out from under Time Warner, Tim Armstrong, that has been kind of he's beat that drum again and again and again. And I think, to be honest with you, it really started with the 5min Media acquisition, where we got serious about video. We started to make investments. There was an acquisition right prior to 5min, which was a company called Studio Now, which is a scaled production company. So, in the matter of like 6 months, we bought, significant production capabilities, and then what I would consider the largest syndication or distribution network in video online. And that's really what 5min was. 5min Media was really about acquiring video content from, the likes of CBS, and I don't know if we've got to deal with weather, but we should talk about it. And a lot of professional publishers around the globe, frankly, who are having a hard time online getting distribution, right? It's hard to build a destination. Roland's done it, maybe YouTube's done it, where people go to the destination. So the whole basis of the 5min business model was to create a distribution network across the web that then we could syndicate all of these videos to in context. And AOL On Network, which was launched, and that's really the kind of the follow-on to 5min Media, was focused on 14 categories of curated video that would wind up across the web in the right environment. So it was AOL on fashion, AOL on food. So it's essentially like recreating, to a degree, the early days of the cable model, but under a different distribution platform. So
let's talk some numbers, because they're pretty astounding. Could you just give us some numbers on audience, on uniques, and
so AOL On, again, so that we look at our video business kind of in 3 ways. It's kind of pyramid based on scale. The first is what I would call branded entertainment. It's production that we do specific to an advertiser's goal. I think the difference that we have there versus a lot of other folks is we can do the production. And we've got relationships with all of the Eisners and the Vugarus of the world, et cetera. But we've also got the distribution network to drive the engagement and the views, I think, that make it matter. So that's kind of the top of the pyramid. Then we've got the AOL On Network, which again is, a collection of 400,000 videos, some we own, most we license, that are distributed across about 1,000 publishers. And then we've got the ad.com business, which is, essentially the largest non-reserve business on the web. We've also got those publishers that we go out and access inventory, whether it's for, extensions of audience or it's just for scale. So we're reaching, on the kind of the AOL On side of the business, over 61 million uniques on a monthly basis, delivering 1 billion views. And just to give you a sense of growth, it's probably a 70 or 80% growth in views, and probably a little less on the UV side over the course of a year. So, again, we believe in the syndicated model in a big way. I think, it does 2 things. It gives us the scale in order to compete effectively for, big share of budget. And the second thing is we control the ecosystem. It's our player and it's our content that's spread across the web. So we've got the ability, and we haven't talked much about it today, programmatic brings a lot of benefits, but there's also a lot of unknowns, right? Where are you buying? Where is it running? Am I going to find out that I'm running in in an environment that, the brand or the client doesn't want to run in? We've got the ability to have that visibility in a scaled way, which we think is a competitive advantage.
So 1.1 billion views,
Yep.
60+ million uniques. I mean, those are TV numbers, right? I mean, if we're straightforward about that, those are TV numbers, right? So when we talk about the AOL network, and I just want to revisit the GRP conversation for a little bit, right? Because, you know, the digital dimes to TV dollars. Do you sort of feel like you're gonna be forced to kind of adopt, because the AOL came out and talked about the EGRP, because the reality was, I believe it was an interview with Armstrong that I read about 8 months ago about tapping into those TV dollars, right? Do you feel like video is going to have to sort of acquiesce to the way of television in the short term to tap into that share shift or drive share shift?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of what Ken said. I think the ecosystem, the buy and sell side, needs to level set, and we've got to figure out the reason that there's two reasons that TV, I think, in my opinion, continues to see a lion's share of the budget, and the upfront continues to grow year over year when the pundits say it's going to go away, et cetera. One is obviously it gives advertisers the opportunity to reach a lot of scale quickly. The second is it's easy. And, so I think for us, there's got to be a component where, operationally, we make it easy for people to spend a lot of money, for marketers to spend a lot of money in a way they understand they're comfortable with. So from that standpoint, yeah, I think that the GRP is at least a baseline where you can get a comparison. You can get a comparison in terms of delivery, in terms of pricing, which I think is a good place to start. I do think there's, a lot of incremental kind of metrics that we can bring to bear on the digital side that, it would be a shame not to figure out how to apply that when people are evaluating whether it worked or it didn't. One of the things that is difficult for us, 1.1 billion views is a lot. There's no question. The difference is most, if not all of it's short form programming. So when we think about inventory availability, it's not, there's not an ad pod, or there's not multiple units that we can run in one view. So we've got to think about that carefully in terms of how we monetize and how we compare that against the TV GRP, where there is, the ad load's bigger. And is there dilution in the message and the performance? I don't know the answer, and we're in the beginning of doing some studies that evaluates, environments and long form versus short form, and, an uncluttered environment theoretically versus one that, you could argue is a little bit more cluttered.
Yeah. So one of the challenges that digital faces, and we go back to the conversation with Tracy about, apps and second screen, the app graveyard, right? One of the challenges with digital is discovery. Unlike linear, right, where you put marketing dollars around driving an audience and it's broadcasted in a linear stream, pretty straightforward. So, I mean, Huffington Post Live and what you're doing there, you're generating a ton of content, and that's a Herculean production effort that you've invested.
Huge.
Which now, the aspiration, I believe, for Roy has said is 24/7. You're now at 5/12, 5 days a week. Part of that acquisition logic, though, was that Huffington Post has some pretty smart algorithms to drive search and discoverability, right? So can you talk to that as to how important discoverability is in video for, online video versus other mediums, and how that's part of what you're delivering to your advertisers? Yeah,
I mean, I'd say two things on that. One is that I agree with you. I think that discoverability has been an issue. It's been an issue for a long time online. It continues to be an issue the way that we distribute video content. But, one of the things, two things that we've done. The first is that, we are in the process of curating, right? These experiences around 14 topics that we syndicate out, in packages, and take some of the, problems with discovery out of the mix. So that's the first thing that we're doing, and we've seen some success. And I think the publishing community, frankly, has bought into that. We take a lot of the issue that they have around curation and programming and discoverability off the table, because we're bringing it to them as part of a kind of a publisher package. The second thing on the HuffPost Live stuff is, that's the beauty of the Huffington Post platform is, it's a CMS that's been built exactly for what you're talking about, which is discovery and the ability to drive social, and people that discover whether it's on Huffington Post or AOL or other properties in a really meaningful way. So I would say that what we've seen, and we've produced, I want to say about 1,500 segments over 2 months. We've seen on average of 14 minutes on a per viewer basis our unique viewer numbers, and these aren't just on live. but this is the conversations that are spread across the web. We're seeing probably, or we've done in 90 days what we thought we were going to do from a UV perspective in about 6 months. So a lot of that is the discoverability and kind of the SEO that goes on top of what we're doing from a video production point of view.
So my last question before we go to the panel is, I was still at Digitas when we did the new fronts, and that at a point in time was incredibly opportunistic because there was premium online video inventory scarcity, right? CPMs were mid-20s, et cetera. Since then, there's been a lot of investment, and a lot of folks like yourself and others have doubled down on video inventory. Two things. One, 12 months. Where's pricing? How do you think that's going to move or change? Is it going to? And actually, where is inventory? Is there scarcity? Is that where the data and the DSPs and the SSP side of it comes into, is to create that scarcity? How do you manage that and mitigate risk and sort of hedge against, what we've seen in display basically for online video?
So first one on pricing, I think pricing will normalize to a degree to what we see in TV, and by that I mean, and in some instances it'll put pricing pressure in the online space. I think we've already started to see it to a degree where folks are buying an 18 to 49 audience on TV at a certain CPM, especially as the broadcast buyers start to get more influence over what gets packaged up and ultimately bought. They want to see parity, or they want to see that the return is significantly better to justify a pricing increase. So I think short-term pricing pressure. The second part of your question, and I think they're tied together to a degree. I still think that what television buyers would consider to be premium inventory will still remain relatively scarce. So that's either long form or professionally produced content, especially as these guys package the stuff up, right? If you're moving, all of these live events and their extensions in an upfront where there's a lot of money moving into the marketplace, that stuff will get gobbled up pretty quickly. I think where you will see more significant pricing pressure, and we've already seen it, is kind of the long tail, where, it's programmatic or it's audience-based, and more video inventory is going to get created, and it gets created inside of social games and, a variety of other kind of what I would call non-traditional places where it has a role, right? And it can drive reach against a certain demo that you're trying to buy as part of a mix. I mean, I think one of the things that broadcasters have done well, and online less so, is figure out what the right mix is. You're not going to sell Super Bowl or Final Four as a standalone value prop, right? It's going to have to come with a mix of other inventory that would be harder to move on a standalone basis, in my opinion.
Okay.
I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it does. That's interesting. So, I mean, basically, in a nutshell, what we're saying is that, and to Kurt's point about creating scarcity, if we look at sort of a macro, market-based supply-demand curves, that there has to be intervention by the publishers and suppliers to ensure that, whether it's by using supply-side platforms or data or whatever, we have to actually either restrain the inventory or we have to make it more valuable in order to retain the premiums.
Yeah, I mean, you see what happens in the display market, right? I think
it's overabundance,
and it has huge, implications on the pricing side. I think that, we've got to make it easier to buy. We've got to understand the inventory, and there's got to be agreement or a baseline on how we're valuing the inventory that we take to market, whether it's, through a marketplace or it's through a direct sales force.
Okay.